The conflict that had been building for years finally exploded on April 19, 1775. British troops marched toward the towns of Lexington and Concord in Massachusetts, hoping to seize colonial weapons and arrest Patriot leaders. Instead, they were met by local militia. No one knows who fired the first shot, but that single gunshot became known as the shot heard around the world. It marked the beginning of the American Revolutionary War. As fighting spread, the colonies realized they needed a united army. In June 1775, the Second Continental Congress chose George Washington, a respected military officer from Virginia, to lead the Continental Army. Although Washington had little experience leading a large army, his determination and leadership would prove to be one of America's greatest strengths.
At first, many colonists still hoped to repair their relationship with Britain. But as the war continued, more people believed that complete independence was the only answer. In January 1776, a small booklet called Common Sense, written by Thomas Paine, inspired thousands of colonists by arguing that America should break away from British rule. Just a few months later, on July 4, 1776, the Continental Congress approved the Declaration of Independence, mostly written by Thomas Jefferson. The document announced that the 13 colonies were now free and independent states. It declared that all people are created equal and have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. While these ideals did not yet apply equally to everyone, they became the foundation of the new nation.
Winning independence, however, would not be easy. Britain had one of the strongest armies and most powerful navies in the world. The Continental Army struggled with shortages of food, clothing, supplies, and trained soldiers. Despite these challenges, Washington kept his army together through difficult winters and repeated setbacks. A major turning point came in 1777 at the Battle of Saratoga. The American victory convinced France that the colonies had a real chance of winning. France entered the war as America's ally, providing soldiers, weapons, money, and naval support. Spain and the Dutch Republic later joined the fight against Britain, placing even greater pressure on the British Empire. The final major battle came in 1781 at Yorktown, Virginia. American and French forces surrounded British General Charles Cornwallis and forced his army to surrender. Although smaller battles continued, the war was effectively over. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris officially recognized the independence of the United States, ending nearly 8 years of war.
Winning the Revolutionary War gave America its independence, but it did not solve the country's problems. The 13 states were now free, but they had no strong national government. Under the Articles of Confederation, the federal government had very little power. It couldn't collect taxes, regulate trade, or effectively solve disputes between the states. It quickly became clear that the young nation needed a better system. In 1787, leaders from across the country met in Philadelphia to write a new constitution. Instead of simply changing the old government, they created an entirely new one. The Constitution divided power among 3 branches, legislative, executive, and judicial, to make sure no single person or group became too powerful. 2 years later, the Constitution took effect, and in 1789, George Washington was unanimously elected as the first president of the United States.
Washington understood that every decision he made would set an example for future presidents. He helped build the new government, kept the country out of major European conflicts, and stepped down after serving 2 terms, establishing a tradition that lasted for more than 140 years. In 1791, the Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution. These first 10 amendments guaranteed important freedoms, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, the right to a fair trial, and protection against unfair government actions. They became some of the most important rights in American history. As the new nation grew stronger, it also grew larger. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson completed the Louisiana Purchase, buying a massive area of land from France. The purchase nearly doubled the size of the United States and opened millions of acres for future settlement.
To learn more about this new territory, Jefferson sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark on an expedition across the continent. With the help of Sacagawea, a young Shoshone woman who served as a guide and interpreter, the expedition mapped rivers, mountains, plants, animals, and native nations. Their journey greatly expanded America's knowledge of the West. Meanwhile, tensions with Britain began rising once again. British ships were interfering with American trade and forcing American sailors into the British Navy. These disputes eventually led to the War of 1812. Although neither side won a clear victory, the war strengthened American national pride. One of its most famous moments came when the defense of Fort McHenry inspired Francis Scott Key to write the poem that later became the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem of the United States. With independence secured and the nation expanding westward, many Americans believed their country's future had no limits. But rapid growth would soon bring difficult questions about land, power, and slavery, issues that the young nation could no longer avoid.